Alrighty guys, welcome to week 2. Let's get going. Last week we talked about the JSON objects and how to access them in there and print them out to the page. This week we're going to talk about looping through objects, because inside the object sometimes we have these key value pairs that have a key and a bunch of values, right? Enemies, a bunch of shredder here, and I put in a couple more. I created an allies key, and then inside of there's key value pairs, right? So they have a key with multiple key value pairs. And then also we talked about this last week, we have a key of move, and then inside of this key we have objects, actual objects. So we're going to talk about how to loop through these. So if we go to the assignment here, you're going to take the 4 objects that you created last week, and you're going to loop through the arrays basically that you created. And you need to have created, one like this, or one like this, or one like this. Now I don't think we talked about these last week, so just go ahead and add another one like this, where you have the key, right, and then inside of there you have multiple key value pairs. Okay, so just create that if you don't have it. Okay, because I'm going to show you how to loop through this type and this type. And if you're not sure what the heck I'm talking about with loops, W3 Schools has a good one. Let's go. So loops are just a way to go through a bunch of information and print it out or do something with it. Okay, so we have this object here called cars, and it has a bunch of things inside of this object. So we have a BMW, Volvo, a bunch of values basically. No, it's not an object. What am I talking about? It's an array. Okay, so it has this array of BMW, Volvo, Saab, Ford, Fiat, and Audi, right? So then it sets up a variable called text and a variable called I, and then this is usually the most common loop you'll see, is it starts with the variable of I equal to 0, and it's going to run until this is no longer true. Okay, so it's going to run, and so it sets up the starting point of the loop basically, then it sets the condition that needs to be no longer true, and then that will make the loop stop. And then this is what happens each time the loop finishes. So in this case, I is 0. Okay, it's going to keep going till I is less than the length of cars. Well, what is cars? Cars is this array up here. And then length is a property that goes in there and grabs how many items are in that array. So cars.length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so cars.length is actually 6. If I were to add more things inside of this array, it would make the length larger, obviously. So basically what this is saying is for I equals 0, it's going to keep going until I is less than 6. Every time the loop completes, it's going to add 1 to I. That's what the plus plus means. So it'll take whatever I is equal to, and it'll add 1 to it. So the way it works is it sets up this variable text, sets it as an empty string. So it's basically preparing it to accept more values, more strings. Okay, so the first time this run, I is equal to 0. So is 0 less than 6? Yep, it is. So it runs. So text is now plus equal. So what this does is it takes whatever text is equal to, and it adds to it cars I plus break. So what that's doing is taking cars I. Well, right now I is 0. So cars 0, we talked about this last week, cars 0 is going to be BMW. So it adds into text BMW and then the break tag. Okay, it finishes, so it adds 1 to I. So I is now 1. So is 1 less than 6? Yep, that's still true. So it runs the loop again. Okay, so text is now BMW with a break tag, so it's going to add on to that. So it's going to say BMW with the break tag, and it's going to add on to that cars 1, which is Volvo, with a break tag. So now we have BMW break tag, Volvo break tag. Okay, 1 gets added to I, so I is now 2. 2 is still less than 6, and it just continues until text now has populated inside of it BMW brake, Volvo brake, Saab, I don't know how you say that, brake, Ford brake, Fiat brake, Audi brake. Okay, so text has all of that populated into it, and then it writes it to the page using inner HTML like we did last week. Okay, so that's very similar to what we're going to be doing today with these loops, but we're going to use a for in loop, which is kind of created just for objects, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's get rid of that and let's hop back into the code here. All right, so this is the object that I created last week. You should have created 4 of these, okay, with different key value pairs and different arrays and such. So what I want to do is I want to loop through allies and I want to loop through moves and print them out to the page. Okay, and we may do enemies here at the end. That should be pretty similar to what we're doing. Okay, so what we want to do is we have this this object loaded. Okay, so I'm going to come up here to body and I'm going to set a placeholder again where I'm going to put this. So let's loop through, we'll do allies first. So I'll just do an H2 tag here and I'll say allies. Okay, and the way I'm going to loop this out is just in an unordered list. You can loop it out as a paragraph. You can, I mean, you'll see what I'm talking about when I get there. But I'm just going to loop these out into an unordered list. And you could do an ordered list if you want, or you can, I mean, these could be links if you wanted. It's just kind of whatever you want to do there. So I'm going to set up an unordered list. I'm going to give it an ID of ally. Okay, and we'll close that out. So using the JavaScript, I'm going to loop through all of these allies, and I'm going to put it inside of this unordered list with the ID of ally. All right, so I have that set up. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to set up the loop that'll do that. Okay, so I'm going to set up a variable called output and set it as an empty string, just like we did on W3 schools. That's kind of what we saw there. Okay, and then I'm going to set up that loop. So for, if you've ever done, well, I don't really need to talk about that, but this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say for key in turtles.allies. Okay, so it's a little bit different, right? We don't have I equals 0. We don't have a condition or anything like this. This is a different for loop. This is a for loop created for, like I said, objects. So for key is this like temporary variable that's set up. This variable will only work inside of this for loop. And what key is going to store inside of it is all of the properties of allies. Okay, so if I come up here, it's going to store inside of key April, Casey Jones, and Splinter. So we have these key value pairs, right? April's the key, and that's the value of April. Well, when we use this in loop, what happens is the first time the loop runs, key is going to be equal to April. The second times it runs, it's going to be equal to Casey Jones. Third times it runs, it's Splinter. And it's smart enough to know that there are 3 keys inside of this object here, inside of this key allies. So it's smart enough to know that there's 3 keys inside of this key of allies, so it's only going to run 3 times. So you don't have to put in a condition. You don't have to say go until, you know, I is less than whatever. It just knows that, okay, there's 3 things in here, so it's going to run 3 times. Okay, so this loop will be ran 3 times. Okay, now there's a lot of different things that can manipulate these JSON objects, so we have to set up another if statement inside of this loop. We have to say if turtles.allies has own property key, then do something. And what this is checking is it's just checking to see if turtles.allies has, the first time it runs, April. Because there may have been some other plugin or something that went in there and manipulated April and changed it out, and And if it ruined it, then we don't want to run this. So all this is really doing is just a safeguard. It's checking to see if I changed it or if something else changed it, and if so, it won't run. So this will return a true or false value. It's a Boolean. So if turtles.allies has on property key, so the first time, remember key, the first time it runs is April. So it's going to say if turtles.allies has on property April, yep, it does, and it hasn't been changed, so it will run whatever inside of these curly brackets. So again, it's just a safeguard. It's just checking to see that April exists inside of this key allies. Okay, and the first time it runs, well, yeah, April does exist, so it's going to do whatever I put in here. And I'm going to do something very similar to what we saw on the W3 site, W3 school site. Okay, so I'm setting up output, okay, which is this empty string variable, and I'm going to add to it an li tag, right? Because up here we have this unordered list, and I want to start putting li tags inside of it. So li, okay, and I'm going to use concatenation. I'm going to say key here. So remember, key is going to be equal to the keys inside of this key, right? So we got April, Casey Jones, and Splinter. So I'm just going to write out a sentence here. Is an ally to the turtles and space. We'll add on to that. Now right here I have the person and then a description of them. And I want to print out that description to the page. So to do that, I say turtles.allies key. Okay, and then I'm going to end that with the closing li tag. So if you remember from last week, right, when we were accessing those, we would, like, if I had, you know, up in here in enemies, right, if I wanted to access Shredder, I would have to do turtles.enemies, the first thing inside of that. Okay, if I wanted to access Leo and I wanted to access katanas, I would say turtles.leo, and that would return katanas, right? So it's very similar here. So what I'm doing is saying turtles.allies, and then it's going to return back the key, which is April. So when it gives me that, turtles.allies April, it's going to give me she's a reporter. Or if I were to say turtles.allies Casey Jones, it would give me he's a guy with a hockey mask. It's basically the same thing that we were doing here. When we say turtles.leo, and it gives us katanas, but we're just going a step further. We're going a level deeper, basically. So turtles.allies.April would give us she's a reporter. Turtles.allies.Splinter would give us he's their dad, weird, eh? Okay, and so forth. So that's what we're doing here. Turtles.allies, well, not dot, but turtles.allies April inside of these brackets. That's going to give us she's a reporter. So yeah, sorry, I didn't. You can't do dot key. That wouldn't work. So you have to say turtles.allies instead of like 0 or 2 or something like that. You have to actually do the name of the key there. Okay. So we can take a look at this, see if it works. So we'll run it. Okay, good. It didn't work. So now we can troubleshoot. We can hit F12. Oh wait, I'm an idiot. Of course it worked, but we haven't printed it out to the page, right? This is all behind the scenes. So I set up this this variable, right? And inside of the variable, we've stored all that. So we didn't get any errors. So that means that, yeah, it's probably working. Now we just need to print it out to the page. And this is really similar to what we did last week. So once this loop is done and it's ran through and output now holds, list item tag, April is an ally to the turtles, and she's a reporter. And then it goes through and then it stores Casey Jones is an ally to the turtles, and he's a guy with a hockey mask. Once it stores all that, All of that's going to be stored inside of output, so now we just want to throw output to the page. So document.get element by ID. If we come back up here, it's ally is what we want to mess with. So ally dot inner HTML is going to be equal to output. Okay. Booyah. There we go. So April is an ally to the turtles, and she's a reporter. Casey Jones is an ally to the turtles, and he's got the Hosky mask, and it's so forth. So that loop went through everything inside of the key value pairs here, went through all of these, and printed them out. And then we were able to just let the computer go through and do that. Okay? Cool. So that's how you loop through the key value pairs when you have multiple key value pairs inside of one key. So let's talk about now when we have objects, right? So this is an object with a bunch of key value pairs. Well, it's not an object. This is a key with multiple key value pairs. There we go. I was wrong on that. All right, now we need to loop through this. This gets a little bit more crazy. Well, you know what? Let's do this one instead real quick. So I'm going to come over here. We'll say enemies. And we'll call this enemies as well. Well, we'll just call it enemy. Okay, so we got that set up now. And we'll just go through this one. Now, to be honest, I actually haven't done this, so I'm just kind of thinking this through. Now, if we go back to week 1, right, enemies 0, enemies 2, enemies 3, and so forth, that's how we access those. So it's going to be really similar to this. So I'm going to come over here. We will add a little bit more code here. We'll say variable output 2. Okay. Right, so we have the empty string there, and then we're just going to set up a for. And then I don't think we're really going to need to have to use the key in because, well, hold on here. Well, I have a way that I'm going to do it just the way that I think we should. And there may be another, maybe I'll use the for in. But this is how I'm seeing how to do it. So I'm going to do for I equals 0. Okay, we're going to go I is less than turtles dot enemies dot length. Okay, and then I plus plus. So really similar to what we had in the W3. Okay, and I'm going to end up looking smart after this, or I'm going to end up looking like a total idiot. If I look like a total idiot, great. I'll pause the video and I'll figure it out. But this is how I think we're going to be doing it here. Okay, so we're going to throw that if in there again. So turtles dot enemies dot has. No, we don't need it. Oh yeah, that's going to mess with it a little bit because we're not using the for key. It's okay. We're just not going to check that. So turtles.enemies.length. Okay, so now we're just going to say output 2 plus equals. We'll throw in another list item. Okay, and we'll say turtles.enemies I is one of their enemies. This will be simple enough. Okay, and then we're going to close out the li tag. So, yep, and then we'll just print it out to the page here. equals enemy, I'm pretty sure, right? Yep, ID equals enemy. That inner HTML is equal to output 2. That may be wrong, but we'll see in a minute. Okay, so output 2 plus equals turtle's enemy's eyes. So okay, well, I think it's freaking out, so let's take a look at what we have here. Unexpected token on 51. Oh, I'm an idiot. You use semicolons, not commas. All right, let's try it now. There we go. All right, so it worked. There may be a way to do it with the key. Well, yeah, I really think there would be, actually. I mean, let's try it. So I'm going to comment this out for now. Copy this. You know, we should be able to just say something like, for key in turtles.enemies equals key. Yeah, because I mean, when it goes turtles.enemies, it should just take these as keys. Well, it may, I don't know. It may, I'm not sure if it's going to read these as keys or values, because in here it reads April as a key, where the value is she's a reporter. These are all kind of like values, so I don't know if this is going to work. We'll see in a minute. So for key in turtle.enemies, yeah, let's see if that works. Boom, save it. Okay, so it's considering these. It's getting kind of the index location instead of, well, yeah, I can't really do like turtles.enemies key. Wait, yes I could, because it's, oops, that was, yeah, because it's giving me 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I could. I'd say turtles.enemies. Boom. Let's try that. Booyah. Cool. So there's the two ways you can do it. And I guess the good thing here is now you can throw in that if statement, right? So, and you can have that check. Enemies has own property key, then do this. All right, so two different ways to do it. This is probably the better way because you can have that check to make sure that the key is part of that property. But that's, you know, what we want in happy days. So it is working. Okay. All right. So those are the two ways that are, you know, pretty simple here. The only difference here is the key for these are 0, 1, 2, and so forth. And here the key is actually defined as April, Casey Jones, and Splinter. That's kind of the main differences there. So the key is 0, 1, 2, 3. These are still the values. Okay, here the keys are actual strings, characters. All right, so let's do moves. This is a little bit harder. All right, so I'm going to come down here. I'm going to set up another variable. I'm going to call it output 3. Set it equal to an empty string. Okay, we're going to have 4. And in this one, we're actually going to use what we saw in W3 schools. We're going to say for I equals 0, okay, I is going to be less than, say less than or equal to turtles dot moves, movies, dot moves, dot length. Okay, and then I plus plus. All right, so what this is going to be doing is this is going to be looping through how many objects are in this array. Okay, so we have this object, we have this object, we have this object. So this would have an index of 0 because it's the first object. This would have an index of 1 because it's the second, and so forth. So this loop is looping through all of these. But the problem is now we're going to need, if this object had multiple keys and values, well, we need to loop through those as well. Okay, so we need to loop through all of the objects, and then we need another loop that loops through all the key values inside of that object. All right, so we have this first loop. Okay, that's looping through all the objects. But now we have another one that's going to loop through all the key value pairs. So for key in turtles dot moves I. Okay. So when it goes through the first object, now it's going to go through all the moves inside of that first object, okay, which is going to be this one. Okay. And it's going to loop through all the keys inside of that object, and well, there's only one, which is very hard. Okay, and then the value is not eating pizza. Okay. So when we loop through all the objects, so this goes through the first object. Once it hits the first object, then it loops through all of the different keys inside of that object. And this is where we do kind of similar stuff. So turtles.enemies, not enemies, we're doing moves. Okay, we're doing that one. Has on property of the key. Then we're going to start writing to output 3. So output 3 plus equals. And I haven't set that up yet, so let me do that. So we'll have h3, h2, moves. I'll call it just ID of move. You know what, just because I'm crazy, I'm going to go on ordered list, people. I get nuts sometimes. So I'm going to do that. Do an ordered list. Okay, so we'll come down here. So these are still list items. Okay, we'll say the space turtles dot moves I key. Okay, this takes us into the first object, right? Because we're in 0. Takes us into the first object, which is right here. And then it's grabbing the key of very hard. Okay, so 0, very hard is what we're going to get the first time this loop goes through. Okay, so this right here, think about it. What is this going to return? So turtles.moves 0, very hard. Yeah, it's going to return not eating pizza, right? So the not eating pizza move is, and then we want to return very hard, right? So to access that, we just say key, right? Remember that temporary variable. Now I know when you're programming, you may have thought, well, wait, you can only have variables like one. I can only have output 3 once on the page. But remember, this key variable is a temporary variable that only exists inside of this loop. So once this loop is done, key just kind of gets abolished into the oblivion. You never see it again, and it's just erased from the memory. It does its job. It saves the keys every time it goes through these JSON objects. And then when it's done, it's just gone. So that's why I can use key here. I can use key here. And I can use it here. I can use it 3 times in these different loops because the minute this loop is done, it's gone. And then it goes here, uses it again, it's gone. Goes here, uses it again, and it's gone. Okay. All right. So I have the whatever move it is. Move is very hard, easy, or whatever to do. Okay. And then I close out the li tag. All right, let's see if this dang thing works. Of course it doesn't because I haven't written it to the page. Oh my gosh, guys. I think I get a little bit ahead of myself and I get all excited. I'm like, is it going to work? All right, so we called this move, right? Dot inner HTML is equal to output 3. All right, now let's take a look. Yay, the not eating pizza move is very hard to do. The roundhouse move is hard to do, and so forth. Now, maybe I want these in quotes, right? This is kind of a cool little trick to know. Now, I can't just go in here and go, well, put this in quotes, right? Because if I do that, it starts screwing it up and it starts thinking that it's text, right? So if I were to come on here and put, well, actually, if I did that, that might work. Yeah. So you can't have single quotes inside of double quotes, and those will print out as text, and that works. But I don't want single quotes. That's lame. I want double quotes. So this is where you start using these things called like alt codes, alt characters. I don't know the exact like term for them, but if you've ever done anything like in HTML, when you do like a non-breaking space, you do an ampersand. So NBSP, that's just a space basically. There's copy. You can do copyright symbols. Is trademark? Yeah, trade is one, and there's a bunch of them. If you just type ampersand, you can see each of them kind of have their number, and there's way more than just these. And this is a time where they're good to use, because if I want a double quote, I can't put a double quote in here because that's going to mess up my code here. Is it's going to think that it ends here, and then it thinks that this is part. You know, if I save this, now it just kind of breaks the whole thing and it just doesn't work. So I got to use these codes or whatever you want to call them to get this to work. And the way you do double quotes is just ampersand quote semicolon. And then I come over here, ampersand quote semicolon, and then there we go. Was I doing it in the wrong one? Yeah, I was totally doing it in the wrong one, so we'll get rid of that. This is why sometimes it's better to be in class, right? You guys can yell at me and be like, dude, what are you doing? Okay, so there we go. There we go. Oh, it's not quote, it's quote without the E. There we go. So the quote, not eating pizza, quote, move is very hard to do. So that's how you can throw in like quotes and different types of characters and such. Okay, guys, so we went through the different types of arrays you're going to have inside of these objects, and you've learned how to kind of loop through them. This one by far is the hardest. Remember, this one's just looping through all the objects inside of that object, right? You can have objects inside of objects, or objects inside of these keys, right? So you can have there's an array of objects. So that's how you can go through that. And then it showed you how to get through these key value pairs, and then just one key with a bunch of values. Okay, if you're having any issues and it doesn't work, make sure you're inspecting, right? Come here, you can right click and inspect, or hit F12 if you're on an almighty PC. Just hit inspect, go to console, and you'll see any errors that come up. You saw that when I had that error. It's a good way to debug, but really, and you don't, like I said, you don't have to have these in lists. You could create a little story, right? Instead of doing lists and such like that, you could just have text be like, one day the turtles were on their way, and I don't know. Well, maybe that wouldn't work very well with looping, because looping is just displaying all of these. But I don't know, it still could work. You could have, well, nah, it wouldn't really work that much. So I know, I'm sure you love how I just kind of think of things as I'm talking here, but yeah, a list would work. You could do p tags, put them in paragraphs. Um, just do what you got to do there. Style it up, make it look kind of good. But really, all I care about is that when I look at your code, right, I'm going to see your objects, and I'm going to see how you looped through them. So, anyways, you'll have, like I had 3 here, you're going to have 4 sets of outputs, because each one of your objects should have some sort of array type values, and you got to loop through those. So you can use the, like I said, you can loop through using p tags, or you could loop through using a tags. You can make them links. Just kind of challenge yourself. The more you play with this stuff, the more you're going to get it. The more you ask yourself questions, well, how would I do this, or how would I do that? That's how you learn this stuff. It's just playing around with it. Okay. Due next week. And I know I may have just kind of rambled on about this on my video, or maybe that was another class, but the way we're going to do these due dates is, I was just thinking, usually these videos are going to be released on Monday, right? Right now it's the 10th, but I did this a little early. So on the 15th, you'll get this assigned. I don't think it's really fair to have it be due the next week. So I think what I'm going to be doing here is, the first assignment was assigned on the 8th. So it'll be due on the 19th. It'll basically give you that week. You'll get your new assignment that you can start working on, but you have until around the 19th to turn in week 1's assignment. So you usually will have about a week and 3/4 or something. That seems to make the most sense to me. But really, to keep on top of things, just do your best to get them done in the week, but I'll give you those few extra days. So this is going to be assigned on the 15th, right? It'll be due the 26th. And the thing that you get on the 22nd will be due on the 2nd, and so forth. I think that's how we'll do those. That makes the most sense. That's why when I say due by Friday of the next week. So Friday of the next week. Friday of the next week, right? So if you have any questions on that, let me know. But when I go to grade it, if it's not there, you'll just get a 0 and life will move on. Make sure you talk to me if you have any questions. Make sure you check the overview section here to get my tutoring schedule. Right now it's Tuesdays and Thursdays noon to 1, but it may be different if this is a different quarter. So whatever I have in the overview section, that'll be my tutoring. And then, of course, whatever you have here is the schedule of the tutors. Okay. All right, guys. Any questions, let me know. Good luck. Here's the code again if you want to pause it. And good luck, guys. We'll see you.